Would you say you're a lucky man or a successful man, or a bit of both?
Well, I am still working at it.
Uh-huh.
So it is, I don't think I'm ready to say that I have been successful.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned that I completed medical school. I am proud of that.
Mhm.
But that was just one step on the ladder. You mentioned that I've been involved in a variety of organizations, and at times I've been the leader of those organizations. Those are also steps on that ladder. But for me at this point, certainly at my age, the thing that's foremost on my mind is a legacy.
Mhm.
A legacy, I need to leave this earth different from the way I came and saw it. I need to leave medicine different from the way I came and saw it. I think just being a doctor and passing through is not enough. So success, I'm not ready to claim yet. I am on the journey to success, and I would like to stay on that journey.
Awesome.
At about 14, I grew up and I was a big man, so I decided that I wanted things my way. So when my mother wouldn't have that, I ran away from home. She didn't come running after me. She didn't send anybody after me. She just waited and waited. And after a few days of being away from home, I realized that the grass wasn't greener on the other side. So I, got my little, with my tail between my legs, I, wandered back home. And she didn't say anything. She just left it that way. And of course, after that, things got a lot easier for her because I knew, how to do things more appropriately. And she's always been like that. She has really been my mentor. There are lots of things that I could say about her, but I think the most telling thing is the fact that, one, I've never heard her say anything bad about anybody in the entire time that I knew her. Here it is. It's hard for never to hear an individual, a
Yes.
human being, not say a bad word about another human being. And
Yes.
that's just the way she was. Never said anything bad about anybody else. She never pushed. She just sort of led.
Mhm.
She led by example. Every day I'm trying to do it as good as she did it. She seemed like she knew just about every word in the dictionary. So I studied the dictionary. I would pick up the dictionary and start studying all the words. She seemed to have an endless fund of knowledge. So I read the encyclopedia as much as I can. I look up everything. If I would ask her a question about some specific knowledge piece of information, and she would say, look it up. So nowadays I look everything up. What do you think I say to all my students? Look it up.
Look it up.
And after they look it up, then we have a conversation. Then I can elaborate. So, those were some of the things that I recall, from my parents. And, I certainly do miss her. Talking about example. My mother, she was the typical Caribbean, typical Jamaican. She had 3 jobs, one in the daytime, one in the evening, and one on the weekend. And always had time when she came home for us children. Of course, we knew our responsibilities. We were taking care of ourselves quite well while she was at work. But not only did she work, she was always involved. She was always involved in things. I remember as a kid seeing her picture in the Gleaner with the Prime Minister getting some recognition because she was advocating for nurses and the care of the people that she took care of. So despite all the responsibilities that she had, she was still taking care of her civic responsibility. And so, it went both ways. It's the way she treated people, is the way she presented herself, and it's the way people viewed her and what she did. At 60 years old, to my surprise, because it seemed like she would work forever, to my surprise, she just stopped working. She says, I'm tired. Your children are now all finished college, and, I don't like this work that I'm doing that much anymore. So she stopped working. So she stopped at 60. For about 10 years, she sort of withdrew into herself. She did things, she kept herself up and everything. And then one day I received a painting by mail. She was living in Florida, I was in New York, and I got this painting. And it was a very nice painting, and I looked at it and I saw my mother's name, her signature on the painting. I called my brother and he said, yeah, I got a couple of paintings too. And my sister, she got some paintings, and everybody was getting paintings. She started painting, and she started sending these paintings all to her friends. Well, in 2004, we had an exhibition in my office on Eastern Parkway. We exhibited about 150 paintings. Remarkable work.
What?
Remarkable work. This woman was a prolific painter between 70 and about 85 years old.
Did you see any signs of her artistic ability when you were a kid?
Well, we saw signs.
Mm-hmm.
She was the lady that everybody would call when there was a wedding to decorate.
Mm-hmm.
She would do her embroidery. She would make artificial flowers. She would, if there was a wedding, she would make the artificial roses and different things. So she had that artistic talent. But you know that oil painting is not something you just pick up and do. That's something you have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And she never shied away from learning anything, no matter how technical it was. I mean, I remember when we first came up, she sanded the wooden floors. This was what she did. I eventually one day sanded my floors, and I got sick after I did that. I mean, that was some hard work. So, but this was a woman.
Yes.
So she taught me respect for women, and she also, but I never saw her as a woman, and that's how I bring up my daughters.
Uh-huh.
I don't tell them that they are ladies and whatever. They are students, they are superstars, they are whatever they need to be. They just happen to be girls.
Mm-hmm.
But I demand from them the same thing that I would demand from a son,
Mm-hmm.
and I expect them to perform in the same manner, because that's how I saw my mother. She was mother, and later she became mother and father, and then she became mentor, then she became artist, and she's been so much for so many people. And so when I think about legacy, I have an example that and a very, very high example. It's not easy for me to get to her legacy. So I have a lot of work. Well, there was a certain amount of there was always respect in the house. There was always deportment. There was behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was a kid, and we would be on the veranda playing, and boys and whatever, and you start shouting and carrying on, and you would break out into your patois, and I would hear Donald. Never in a loud voice, and everything would stop. All my friends, everybody would stop, and then I would have to go in, and then she would say, like, what do you mean by uno? So and so you had to go back out, and when my friends used to come to play with me, the first thing they would say, is Mrs. Moore home? Because there would be a different behavior for everybody's behavior. My friends be everybody. We always had to have a different sort of behavior. So she was sort of, and again, she wasn't rough. She never shouted at anybody. She never scolded anybody. It was just, if Mrs. Moore is home, this is how you behave. This is how you keep your voice low, and all of this. So respect.
Then there's your medical career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about this early phase when you did your surgical residency.
Mm-hmm.
3 years.
I did 3 years of surgical residency.
And then you moved into emergency medicine.
I moved into emergency medicine.
What was the trigger that caused that?
Well, these are all mistakes.
Mistakes.
Mistakes, of course. Lots of mistakes. And that's the other thing. My mother, she never blamed me for any mistakes. She just sort of uh, expected that you would figure it out. You know, as a matter of fact, when I got into a few medical schools,
Mm-hmm.
it was quite impressive because at graduation from PACE, you know, when they call you across the stage, they actually stopped and mentioned, this graduate had all these opportunities. So when I'm there trying to figure out where I'm going to medical school, my mother said, go to Yale. And that's what I did. I went to Yale. You know, and it's interesting because I always did what she wanted me to do, but she never forced me to do anything. Anyway, when I finished Yale, I was enamored with surgery. Yes, this is a wonderful thing. I'm going to become a plastic surgeon, and I'm going to, go do my general surgery residency and da 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 da. So I went to Mount Sinai, and coming out of Yale was a little different. Yale was a different kind of medical school. First of all, we never had exams. So here it is, you go through a pre-medical program, everybody's testing you all the time, then all of a sudden you go to this place and these people say, well, we know you're bright because you're here. So since you're here, we expect you to just study. Your study will be up to you. You pursue this independent course of study. You don't have to go to lectures. All you have to do is you have to always go to these conferences where we have discussions. And you don't have to take an exam. All you have to do is at the end of the second year, you need to pass the boards. And if you don't pass the boards, you can't move along. And that's how it was. So we would do independent study. That's how we did medical school. Many people can't handle that, and many people don't succeed in that process. But I was in my glory because I hated exams. I never liked taking exams. I always wanted to study what I wanted to study, and so the funny thing is I always went to class. I liked going to class. That was one of my things. I guess it was my upbringing going to class. So I would go to class, and classes were, for the most part, quite interesting. It's people don't become Nobel laureates because they're uninteresting. They're usually very interesting. And to sit in a class and hear, somebody like George Palade talk about the cell and cell biology, and the guy who discovered one of the organelles in the cell talk about it, it's an opportunity of a lifetime. So I came out and I was like so many Yale graduates. I was gonna become some big hotshot, plastic surgeon, and I'd be fixing faces of all the stars and whatever. So I went to Sinai, Mount Sinai, and it really wasn't exactly like that. All of a sudden, I went back into the real world. What I didn't like was that people started telling me what to do again. My senior resident was telling me what to do. Everybody was telling me what to do, and I didn't like that. I was not cut out that way. By the time I got to the third year, we were having lots of issues. I was involved with, let's say there were issues with the administrative people. So I'll give you an example. This is back in the, I guess we're talking about early 1980.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, I remember one day, a crazy person took a gun and shot one of the doctors at the VA. So the VA, being the United States government, decided that what they would do is they would put up a screening process so that people don't come into the hospital with guns. Back then, nobody was being searched for anything, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
But the VA started to do this. So they would put this, metal detector at the entrance into the VA hospital, and I was doing one of my rotations there in surgery. I didn't think, or I didn't believe that I should be searched to go into a hospital. Here it was, I was a surgical resident. So I would refuse to let them search me. And of course, I'm dealing with the federal government, and they say, well, gee, where do you come from? You're going to be searched. So the first time I refused to be searched, they pulled me over and they handcuffed me and they put me off to the side and da-da-da-da. So finally, the surgical department come and pull me out of this. So the next day comes, I still am not going to be searched. So you can't go in. So here it is. The surgical resident can't go into the hospital to do his studies. And this went on, days pass, weeks pass, and I'm not going to work because I won't let them search me and they won't let me come in unless I get searched. So, we started having these obstacles. Now, of course, there weren't too many mentors around to call me over and say, come on, guy, let me straighten you out and help you out a little bit. There was nobody, so I was on my own. I didn't tell my mother these things, that this was all going on. As it turns out, eventually we were having another issue, and they eventually evicted me out of my apartment. So I just quit. I just told them, I'm done. And I walked away. I didn't realize you couldn't walk away from a surgical residency. And as a result, I had to find something else to do. So, at that point, I was already a licensed physician. So I got a job. I went to Kings County. And I started working in the emergency room using my surgical skills. And, I started sewing up people in the ER, and things are going well. But then I ran up against the administrative people again. Back then, I don't know how it is now, but it was a dirty place. And, I didn't think that you should be treating patients in a dirty place. So I would have my standard. I would go in and I would say, this is a dirty room. I will not work here. I need somebody to come and clean this room. So if nobody came, I would go get the mop and I would sweep the room and I would clean the room. And of course, that would make people upset. Why is this doctor mopping the floor and sweeping the room? And so whenever, after a couple of years, well, I was there for about 10 years. After a while, they got tired of me, and when they found the opportunity, they fired me. Things weren't going so well. This guy keeps getting quitting or getting fired. Then it clicked. Well, maybe I can't work for other people. Maybe at that point, I actually had already started my practice. I was already doing my own thing. But, we need jobs, especially early in your career. You need jobs. You need to put together your resources. I eventually, at a certain point, said, I'm just going to do this on my own. I am a licensed physician. I have training. I am beginning to understand. So maybe it's time now I set my own mission statement. I set my own goals, and I should move it. And that started about in the I would say 1995. So from about that point, I was moving fully in towards my goals in my direction, establishing the kind of medical practice that I wanted to establish. We talked about, where you were back then. When I applied to medical school, we all go through the same process. Everybody who wants to go to medical school go through the same process. You got to do pre-med. After you do pre-med, then you have to create some reason why you want to become a doctor. Well, again, because I didn't know what doctoring was when I decided I wanted to become a doctor, I had to create a reason why I wanted to become a doctor. So life, the way life is, found ways to educate me. I remember one day I was out in the street and there was a car accident, and I ran to the accident and I, provided first aid. Another time, I saw somebody sick and I ran, and I like that. I like running to rescue. So there was that aspect. But as I developed the philosophy of the way my life should be, what I realized is that I wanted to change things for people. And it may sound trite, but that's what most people who want to become doctors decide. They want to change life for other people. And I felt that I wanted to influence the health of all people that came within the sphere of my influence. And the only way I could really do that is to establish my own, to pull together my own resources, set my own mission, and do it the way that I think I should be doing it. So hence I'm here.
If you had a chance to go back in time, what would you tell the 14-year-old boy?
I'll tell him, get prepared. You know, you don't know what you're going to be doing. Don't think you know what you're going to do at 14. You have no idea.
True.
I mean, I didn't even know what I was going to do when I got out of medical school. I didn't know. You don't know. When I got out of medical school, HIV did not exist. It did not exist. Talking about Ebola, it didn't exist. Ebola was just, we just uncovered that in 1975. So you don't know what you're going to be doing. So be prepared. Your job as a 14-year-old is to go to school. Period.
What you're doing right now, you know for sure that you like this.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
What are you most thankful for?
I'm most thankful for my health, to be able to do what I do. I'm most thankful for my family. I have 2 lovely daughters who are, bright. They're gonna probably at some point, I'm hoping that to see they carry on the legacy of service. It's service. There are a couple of cliches. Like, what's the meaning of life? The meaning of life is service. There's a little poem that I like. We talked about this. This came up earlier in our discussion. It's, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was duty. I acted, and behold, duty was joy. So that's it. Going to work makes me happy. My vocation is my vacation. I'm happy every day. I don't remember ever missing work in my entire life.
So when are you most happy? When you're working?
No, I'm happy all the time.
All the time.
But I'm always working. So I don't separate. I don't go to work as such. I go to the office, and then I go to the hospital, and then I go back home. I just go places.
Yes.
Like I'm working right now. This is part of my work. I'm talking about medicine. I'm educating. I'm having I'm marketing my practice. I'm working. So this is fun, and this is the fun part of work. Sometimes it gets a little harder, and it gets a little more tedious, or a little more it's not as exciting, but it's still
Finish
fun.
this sentence for us. I look forward to Sunday evenings too.
I look forward to Sunday evenings because Monday comes up the next day.
This question I ask all my guests: what makes you laugh out loud?
Well, this conversation, I've laughed out loud a few times. I don't laugh out loud a lot, but I am always smiling, and I'm always happy. I guess a good conversation makes me laugh out loud.
Awesome.
Yeah.
G in the chat.